Yes,
Alive.
you are now listening to the sound of Sports Reports is Ordered. And tonight, what is the NCAA doing? Are they just trying to give up all their power? Joel Embiid is out for an extended period of time. We figure that's about 4 to 6. And I don't know why I made that sound like a jail sentence. But we're going to do one more final reaction to the NFL coaching carousel. Give some final thoughts on these hires. Maybe throw some coordinators in there. We'll see where the conversation goes. But don't let me be rude. Let me step back for a second. Let me introduce the one and only, worldwide famous, more worldwide than West.
You're
BA born.
New
Jerusalem's in the building. Don't bring feelings to a fat fight.
Don't do it.
And of course, the biggest movement since Dipset, Killer Logical. And for
we in
those
the
of you
building.
that don't know me, more influenced than Jim Jones, more award-worthy than Killer Mike. And you ain't even got to worry about me getting handcuffed. I do the handcuffing. Ask Lindsay about it. Always out here saying hi to your grandma. 2-5, because I respect my elders. We are Sports Reports
Ordered.
And now we're going to start this off with a little something we like to call Get It Off My Chest.
So I got a little something today. We got a little shout out to the Hot Box little chat group we have on Facebook and the podcast. You can see it posted on our Facebook page. We share a lot of information on Instagram. We tag each other a lot in these different conversations. But throughout the day, we generate a lot of conversations. This was something I actually posted on my page a couple of days ago. Can y'all please stop with this NFL is rigged stuff? Just stop. I understand that the outcomes aren't in your favor, but that does not support it being rigged. To simply replay the end of a game and simply say, look at all these missed tackles. These guys are $1 million ballerinas out there. I played the game. You don't miss tackles like that. It's irresponsible. It's illogical. Until you support it with some real evidence, you can't believe it. Like, you can't just be believing it and sharing all these videos. Like, look at this. Now, you mean to tell me he missed his tackle? Because think about it. I just saw a highlight because I'm watching best throws from the 2023 season. Philly returned an interception against Arizona, put them up 14-3. They ended up losing that game. I believe it was like 35-31. No one's up in arms saying that game was rigged.
Right.
No one's reposting clips of, look how this game, they were dominating, while all of a sudden, it seems like the only time this gets mentioned is when somebody's team succeeds or a pick that they made doesn't fall through the way that they wanted. Now all of a sudden it's rigged in somebody else's favor. Too many things have to happen. The helmet catch cannot be written into a script. Eli Manning being awful for all those years, making that Super Bowl run, that script wouldn't even be believable. If you wrote that in a movie, people are like, really? Stuff has to happen in real life. You got to deal with it. The second miracle at the Meadowlands, when Deshaun Jackson returned the punt for a touchdown and Philly ended up winning that game 38-31 when they were down 21 in the fourth quarter. No one's bringing that up saying that the NFL is rigged. No one's chopping that up and cutting that up and look at the rest of it. It's only now that all of a sudden people are on this hype train, this outrage train. Talk about Chris Rock with his special selective outrage. That's all it is. People, come on now, formulate your own opinion. Be thoughtful, be logical, do some research, get some information. Don't just share YouTube clips of some dude saying, you know what? Everything ain't played out on the field. It's like, cut it out. The NFL has the most viewers of any televised event. The Super Bowl last year was the most viewed event in the world ever. So, what is their incentive to rig games? People watch the Super Bowl every year, no matter who's in it. Just because a team hasn't made it, because Detroit hasn't made it, because Cleveland hasn't made it, because Washington hasn't been there in a while. It is what it is. Like, you got to do better as a team to get there.
100%.
Like, there's no incentive for the NFL to rig games. So please stop sharing these videos, stop posting these videos, stop giving these dudes clout, because it is ridiculous. NFL's not rigged. Your team just didn't win. Maybe they will next year.
Yo, and be on the lookout for 2-5 Daily, because I'm gonna talk about some things that would happen if the NFL was actually rigged. But the NBA kind of has a hand in this, because obviously you had Tim Donaghy out here, and we know about what happened between the Kings and Lakers, for example. So once you have something happen like that, I think it's natural for people to say, well, what's happening in other sports? I don't know. I don't even know how you would rig baseball, like outside of the strike zone, I guess. But but looking at football, there's too many moving parts. Like I will admit, there were 2 seasons in particular that I did think the NFL was rigged. I thought that the NFL was rigged when the Saints won, because all they were talking about was Katrina, but obviously it didn't happen like the year after Katrina. The Patriots, 9/11, Patriots, shout out to Sean McDermott. You know what I'm saying? I thought about that at one point in time. But the question I've always had, because I know you like to do the thing, Kawhi traveled, all that stuff like that. And I was like, why they didn't call Eli in the grasp?
I thought about that too, but I think it's because he had some space. Like, it was an offensive lineman pushing the defensive end off of him. Like, the defensive end wasn't pulling him in. Like, I think the guard of the tackle was like was it Adonis? What was his name? The big defensive end for New England. He had him by the jersey.
Wolford?
It wasn't Wolford. It was 96.
No, he's a tackle.
Aquarius or Donners. He had like a names like AQ, Aquinas, or something like that. I can't remember. But he was being blocked while holding on to Eli. So like Eli had like a little space, and then the offensive lineman was pushing. So I'm glad they didn't call it. It was one of the greatest plays in the history of the sport.
Definitely something we'll talk about for the rest of our lives. At least.
I like when the referees stay out of the way.
Yeah, I think that outside of like just those moments where I was just thinking like, really, the Patriots ain't never won no Super Bowl. This Tom Brady kid at the time, it's like he's not a great quarterback, or, this Patriots team isn't a great team playing against the greatest show on turf. I mean, obviously we found out later that they cheated, but you know what I mean? But that wasn't rigged. That was just the Patriots being some low down, dirty cheaters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I give you, if you tell me somebody cheated, I give you that, because that has been investigated and that's been talked about. The NFL there's no incentive for the NFL to rig games because they don't lose viewers. Sunday used to belong to Jesus.
Right.
That was the NFL, then Jesus.
Right.
Like, let's keep it 100.
Yeah, like, even like with the whole Kaepernick thing, there were people talking about how they were going to stop watching. I know a few people did. Shout out to Residente. He did stop watching. But just from the standpoint of you gonna come back, you know what I mean? Like, football is embedded in you as an American. Like, you can't live in this. Even people that don't necessarily follow sports, they know who Patrick Mahomes is. Obviously, we got this Taylor Swift thing going on, and hopefully it'll end after this season, and next year we don't have to deal with this shit anymore. But it is what it is. But yo, get it off my chest. You didn't tell me I ain't had the banner up, but
hey, listen, Live show, baby. We make it do what it do.
You know what I'm saying? But get it off my chest. So when this whole thing started, you thought he was going to be in at 10. It's only been 6. Smarten up, Nas. You know, as I look at the Lakers, the state of the Lakers, what are we doing here? Are you a contender? No. Is there a trade out there that can make you a contender? No. And why? Because you don't have the pieces to get that player or players that could make you a contender. Atlanta fans already out here screaming that they don't want D'Angelo Russell. You know what I'm saying? So we figure Austin Reeves probably isn't on the table. You know, you're not going to trade Anthony Davis right now because as long as you're keeping LeBron, you know, you figure Anthony Davis is the best path as a running mate to get LeBron back to the finals. Because in the end, it's not about the Lakers getting to the finals. It's about LeBron getting to the finals. You know, as we look at this, me and Mr. Logical used to argue about this way before Sports Reports is Ordered was even thought of.
Correct.
You know, we used to argue about this. Why don't Cleveland try to find a trade for LeBron? Well, LeBron has a no trade clause. Right. But if we find the right trade, maybe he'll say yes. You know, why did Miami let LeBron hold them hostage and walk away and leave devastation in his wake? This is what he does. You know, it is what it is. And that's not even hate. I'm not even trying to hate on LeBron right now. I'm just saying that's what happens when he leaves these teams. And it's usually because he walks away, his buddies leave too, and then we got to hear about how the team can't win without him. So as I'm looking at this season, 39 years old, having a great season. Michael Jordan could never. You know, and even with that being said, they're barely above 500. They won the in-season tournament, and they've been awful ever since for the most part. They got the win against Golden State, so you know you got to give them the credit where the credit is due. But I think this trade would be But I think this trade would be beneficial for both teams, or for both parties, for LeBron and the Lakers. From the standpoint of once you move LeBron, maybe you can move Anthony Davis. Now you can get some picks back that we know the Lakers don't care about the draft, but you can go get you another star, a younger star, to start the new era of Laker. You know, as I look at LeBron James with the hourglass, you know, with the Knicks towel, with the Knicks colored shoe, I would just be sick of his shit. Like, I'm sick of his shit right now, and I don't even deal with him directly. And I'm sorry, Mr. Logical, because I know you would like to have LeBron on the show at some point. But, you know, I got to be authentic. I got to be authentic. Because, you know,
2-5.
Because, you know, back in the day when we were listening, you know, who's the best MCs, Jay-Z, Biggie, or Nas? A part of that was the subliminals being so clever. Your rain on the top was short like leprechauns and things like that, where you had to figure out who they were talking about, piece it together. It was like a chess match. There was a Cold War going on that not a lot of people knew about because Twitter and all that wasn't around back then. LeBron tries to do that, but he's just childish and annoying. You know what I mean? So
he does it a lot.
Yeah, he does it a lot, so it doesn't have that effect. But who knew after all these years and trying to put Kevin Love in his place, LeBron would be the one trying to fit out.
Now, I am going to say this. The LeBron trade is too late. Also, the Lakers haven't had a season without a superstar for a while. So they had the gap after Kobe retired, of course, his final years. But they are a show. They are entertainment. They have the championships, but they were Showtime through the 80s and the 90s. Then they got Kobe. They got Shaq. They started winning more championships. They had a little gap. They got Powell, paired him with Kobe, won some more championships, Eastern Conference, Western Conference Finals, things of that nature. And then they had a little gap, hired Magic Johnson. That brought a little buzz to the team because the Lakers need buzz. They're Hollywood. When you're
Right.
selling a movie, you need buzz.
Right.
They are the masters of buzz. I think they treat their team like a Hollywood movie. You can have an average script, but if you feel like you can go get the best actor, it'll make the movie work. And it worked in 2020 when they won the championship that year with LeBron
Right.
and AD because they gave up a bunch. It was like you're making a movie, you overpay Angelina Jolie, you overpay, you know, J Lo, you overpay Vin Diesel, you pay these guys 30, 40 million just because it's like, yeah, we're going to be right. Our budget's going to be high, but The Rock and Kevin Hart together they're going to get us $500 million if it works. And that's what LeBron is. LeBron is that box office piece with AD, the no trade clause, on top of the fact that every team isn't cultivated to handle what LeBron brings. And it's not a negative thing. It's just like it's like right now I work in a flying squadron. Airplane is pretty large. You can't land at every airport. Just certain airports need certain things in place before the jet can even land at the airport. So when these guys are planning out their missions and they're going to land somewhere, it's like we can't go there. They don't have the support we need. It's not that we're a diva airline or a diva group of air crew. It's just that this plane requires X amount of support, X amount of like certain level. It has to be upper echelon kind of support. Same thing if you are trying to get a DoD hotel. Like if you're overseas and you're DoD, you have to get a DoD approved hotel because of safety and security. You are an upper echelon piece. You can't just get off the plane and creech and go to the next hotel next to the airport. It has to be a certain distance from X, Y, and Z, safety, whatever the case may be. So it may seem like, oh, you guys are being extra, but that comes along with what you bring to the table. LeBron is that piece. He leaves these teams in shambles, but they get to the finals. They're selling out every home game for 4 years in a row. They're selling out every road game. Price tickets are inflated. I looked at tickets last for the Knicks game Saturday. It was $696 for the nosebleed seats. $700. That's a couple car payments to sit above the scoreboard because the Lakers were in New York City. That's what you get when you have them on your team. So you got to take the bad, good with the bad. But when you give a guy that talent, no trade clause, you got to do everything around that to make your team work. You can't expect that piece to all of a sudden be like, oh, this isn't working because all these pieces we put around it didn't work. So now that piece is unmovable.
Right. And that's the thing with a franchise like the Lakers, you're not playing to get to the finals. You know what I mean? You're not playing to be a contender.
Yes, you are.
No, you're not. You're playing to bring it home.
They're not champions.
You're playing to bring it home. No, they're not. No. We're saying two different things. We're saying two different things. I'm not saying that the Lakers are a championship team.
Historically,
that's what they play for.
Everyone plays for the championship for the most part, but it's like the Dallas Cowboys. They make moves in hopes that they win championships. But if they can just keep putting butts in seats, because think about what have the Lakers done to improve their team? Every year, they basically trade apples for different color apples. They get a bunch of guys who are tough and they can't shoot. For the last 3 seasons, you get Cam Reddish, you get Rui, you get you just get guys off the bench.
That's a part of the LeBron experience.
You get a bunch, but they keep getting guys who can't shoot.
They keep getting his buddies.
Then you get one guy that can really that's showing improvement.
He was the one that signed off on Westbrook coming there when there were probably shooters out there that they could have got Buddy Hield. They could have got Buddy Hield, but they
wanted Buddy Hield, but they wouldn't move the trade pieces. They could have gotten Buddy Hield.
They wouldn't move Westbrook. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So they haven't really put themselves in a position to really be a championship team other than just keeping LeBron. And that's all they had. Magic Johnson was there. LeBron fell into their lap. The Lakers have done nothing since they got Paul Gasol that says without LeBron just going there. Name one move that they made that was like, yeah, This
Anthony
is a
Davis.
championship move. That's because LeBron said trade all these other dudes away, which wasn't a smart move.
Oh,
They
LeBron said that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. He said, go get my
Just
guy.
making sure,
Go
because
get
I
my
know
guy.
before when we say that he be doing these things, people say he don't.
No, I know he asked for. Everyone knows he asked for Anthony Davis. He was assigned to his agency. He was the guy that he wanted. He's pretty much said it publicly without tampering. So we know he wanted that guy. But other than that move, and on top of that, the moves after that, they didn't re-sign Alex Caruso. They gave up Kuzma and KCP to get Westbrook. It's like they keep making these moves that aren't championship moves, and it looks like they're a championship team because they have the ultimate championship piece in LeBron coupled with AD. That's it. That's their only championship move that they have.
Jay-Z theme going. This is the blueprint too. It's the gift and the curse, because all these years, all we've heard is if you put LeBron on this team, they're a contender, and it was true. You know, they get to the finals.
They were in the Western Conference Finals last year. So it's not like it's not
viewing
true.
LeBron through that 2013 lens. If we have
like
LeBron, we can win.
You can win. They were in the Western Conference Finals last year. They were up. I mean, yeah, they got swept, but they were up in games 1 and 2, blew those leads. It happens because at some point you need another guy who can kind of get his own bucket.
Right.
They didn't have that, but made it to the Western Conference Finals. I wasn't expecting them to make it that far because I don't think.
Yeah, that was the weird thing, because we were reversed last year, because I was like, I like the trade moves, and you were like, nah, they ain't gonna do nothing. It was weird. Like
it just because, like I said, it just felt like they just were just trading apples for other apples. And I understand wholeheartedly LeBron for his entire career, you could have put him on any team in the league, especially in his prime years.
Right.
Like that 8-year run when he went to the finals 8 straight years.
Right.
You could have probably put him on a different team every year, just him for those 8 years, and I think that team would have been odds 1 or 2 to make it to the finals every single year.
Easily,
just because he is that dynamic. It's like you can't take that away from him. The problem is the expectations right now are too high for the team that they have.
Especially considering the fact that he's 3 years younger than us.
Yo, dude, yeah, we would have been in high school with him. Like he would have been the year we graduated, he would have rolled in. He would have been a freshman.
Yeah.
He would have been a freshman. So
and I think that's lost. I think people understand.
We damn near in our mid-40s.
Well, I think people
went in the carry
understand.
league of 22-year-olds, 22 to 25-year-olds are dominating the league, and you want the 40-year-old dude. It's like,
yeah, I think that people understand that he's older or old, but I don't think people actually understand how old he is. Like, you know, the things that he's doing, like, is remarkable. We've never seen anybody at this age do the things that he's doing. So I understand
most minutes in the history of the sport.
So I understand why, if you have him on your team, you feel that you have a chance. But if you're not, if you're going to basically malpractice, because I don't know how Pelinka still has a job. So if you're going to put these pieces around
apples for apples, they literally they haven't made a championship move for getting Paul Gasol was their only championship move. And that was because Jerry West gave it to him. If Paul Gasol's on any other team, they're not getting Paul Gasol for what they traded him for. His little brother, who was unproven, Kwame Brown, I believe.
Yeah.
And like some picks from like 2037 or something like that. So crazy. Like no one else was giving that deal up other than Jerry West. And that was their only championship move.
That's the other problem I was talking about. You know, they gave up all their picks except for, I think it's 2027 and 2029, maybe.
I think they moved those picks.
You know, so
whoever they have on the team now.
Yeah, so it's just one of those.
That was part of the package deal from last year.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, so from that standpoint, that's where I'm like, you're going to start over at some point. And like I used to tell my airmen, because, you know, we had some knuckleheads back in the day, you know, so I used to tell my airmen, go home because you chose to go home, not because they told you to go home. And that's where I'm at with the Lakers. Don't start over because LeBron walked away and you have to start over. Sometimes it's okay to get ahead of it. Now, I know
I told you over 2 years ago that they should have traded AD.
Yeah.
And then just relish in the fact that they got a championship in 2020. Trade AD to whomever has some young talent.
But you can't do that just like you
And
can't
then
trade LeBron because
LeBron doesn't re-sign there. He goes back to the Heat. He goes back to Cleveland, or something like that. And you can look at the AD trade as this is what we got for LeBron. Because we got AD because LeBron was here. We get AD, we move AD. We get whatever pieces back we get. We pair him with LeBron for however many years he had left on his deal, and then you let him walk. It's not a knock on him,
right?
but it's like you're in no man's land because you weren't in a position of power once you essentially won the championship and kind of gave up too much after the fact.
It was
too rough.
They need a 2-5 up in there because I think that sometimes sports executives and GMs, they get inside their mind and they're cognizant of the criticism that they're going to receive if they do certain things. So like whatever happens in your life after you trade LeBron James, you're going to be known as the person that traded LeBron James. You know, regardless of what point he is in his career. But even if you just trade AD and keep LeBron, 2 questions: what are you bringing in to get you closer to a championship?
Whatever you could have got him for a healthy AD in the offseason 2 seasons ago.
And then number 2, you're still going to be dealing with his bullshit and his and his like tweets and all this kind of stuff that isn't conducive.
That's the thing. The Lakers organization, they are the airport that can handle the heavy aircraft coming in. They can handle that because they are such a limelight based franchise. LeBron's not their first superstar. Cleveland, LeBron was their first superstar, and you saw how Dan Gilbert handled him when he left. Miami, LeBron wasn't their first superstar. Pat Riley didn't go bananas when they left. He just kept his coaches. He kept bringing D Wade back, and he just kept making moves to keep. He just was like, "Hey, I'm not gonna acquiesce to all your requests." He kept it together. The Lakers are that kind of place. They just are living in fantasy land, thinking that it's all just going to work out.
And that's why I said, smarten up, Nas. You know, so
4 to 6 weeks. I love it. Mike be killing me with these titles because I don't see him. I don't see the banners before. So we see him when I see him live. This is a real reaction to like some of these banners that he comes up with. So
yeah. So reigning, defending MVP Joel Embiid. I called him out a couple of weeks ago because he didn't want to play in Denver. He got pulled off the court. I still feel that way. You know what I mean? Obviously, he got hurt a few games later, unfortunately, against Golden State. Kuminga ran into his leg and everything. Freak injury to some degree. So that wasn't tied to what happened in Denver. But now he's out 4 to 6 weeks. The Sixers have been, you ready for it? The Sixers have been surmounted, by the Knicks and the Cavs. So right now they're in 6th. They sit
Correct.
about a game out of 4th, I believe. So if the playoffs were to start today, they would be on the road. Oh, they're 5th. I'm sorry. They would be playing.
They just lost to Dallas tonight.
Yeah, so they would be playing the Knicks right now if the playoffs started today in the 4-5, but they would be the road team.
Correct.
So, Mr. Logical, you've been talking real crazy out here listening to people like Kendrick Perkins talking about this man needs to sit. Talk to me about it.
Per that, that clip of Kendrick Perkins, I don't know if anyone's seen it, was from ESPN. Reportedly, Embiid was having trouble jumping before the injury. I think he probably didn't play in Denver because he needs the rest. He's a big body, growing about 7'2", 285. And then the way he plays, he doesn't just play your traditional, like Jokic doesn't need to move that fluidly. Jokic kind of just, he can kind of lumber. Embiid plays with great quickness like a soccer player. He played soccer growing up, being from Africa. So, like, I think he moves differently. He moves like a guy who's 6'7", but his body is 7'2", and it's like it's hard to kind of balance both. But that's how he plays. That's how he's averaging 36 points a game. But it could be to his detriment if he tries to come back, because 4 to 6 weeks, we did the math. You get about two to 3 games a week, about 2.5. So you're somewhere around 12 to 18 games. They just played their 49th game, so that will get you back between games 61 and 67. So that gives you 15 to 21 games left. So if he comes back, the likelihood of him playing the remainder of those games is unlikely. He'll probably play about 70% of those. So I get you about 12 games, maybe, out of the 12 to 14 games. And if you watch them tonight, Dallas and a lot of teams are notorious for shooting a lot of threes. Philly had like a 9 to 10 point lead. And then Dallas just started pump faking and just going to the cup, because Mo Bamba, I think they took Mo Bamba out. I think they had Tobias Harris playing the 4 to 5. So Dallas just started taking it to the cup. Kyrie with his layup package. Grant Williams was trying to do his thing. Young guy Josh Green. So they just started taking it to the cup. And I don't know how coaches view tape and blueprints and so forth and so on, but without Embiid there, just a big body, they were just taking it to the cup. And then Maxey has to come back down and make up for the fact that there's no rim protection. So you're probably going to lose. I mean, best case scenario, you win about 8 or 9 of these games if you're lucky. You end up like the Heat are going to get better just because they always get better after the All-Star break. They just do. I think they coast properly, and then after the All-Star break, they just ramp it up. So they're probably going to be around 7 or 8 by the time Embiid gets back in 4 weeks. Because I don't know what you do unless you just have Maxey just go ape every single game. And he's putting up Embiid numbers. But if he doesn't, who does? Tobias Harris, does he give you maybe 16 points?
Yeah, don't even get me started with him.
So like I think it's just it might be more favorable for them to just consider sitting him down. Not making that decision yet, but at 3.5 weeks, if it doesn't look like he can play at all for 3 more weeks, or if he can't do any contact for a couple of weeks, it's like you just gotta wait. Like, listen, we're gonna pay this guy. This guy's getting paid a lot of money. We need him. We're not a championship team. I don't see this team making it out of the East anyway. So you're looking at a potential second round exit again. So at least give yourself the excuse of, we lost Embiid. We had to sit him down. Let's regroup.
See, I get it. And I'm not necessarily fully against it.
Yeah, it makes some valid points.
But I don't think that should be the thought going in.
How long before you would have that thought? Like what would make
I think you would just have to see. You would have to, whenever he gets cleared for contact and cleared for practice and all that, I think you just have to see and monitor how he looks at that time. Just like they did at the Denver game, where he was there for shoot around, and the trainers were the ones that pointed out, like, hey, something looks off. Like, he doesn't look like himself today. They sat him down. It's just that with narratives, he hadn't played in Denver since 2019. So that was easy to jump on. Now, once he gets cleared for practice, if he's running sets or whatever, and you're just like, he doesn't seem to have any bounce to him or any spring to him. You mentioned that they said he couldn't jump very well. So if he still looks stiff and like a damn ogre, you know what I mean? Then like you think about that. But with that being said, this is a chance now for a lot of things to happen. Because I was looking at the Kia NBA ladder for MVP. And he's been number one every week of the season until this week, where he's
Correct.
been replaced by Nikola. And I know a lot of people that look like me gonna be upset that Jokic is number one on that tier ladder. But we got SGA coming into the chat. So this is a chance.
True.
This is a chance for a new MVP candidate to get some shine. This is a chance for Luka coming off of 73 and all that to get into the MVP conversation if Dallas can start winning some more games. This is a chance for Jason Tatum, the leader of the best team in the NBA, to get into the MVP conversation. So
Maybe
all is not
Kawhi
lost.
slides in.
Let's not get crazy now. You know what I mean?
Listen,
Like,
third in the West. They look prime. They look healthy. I
well,
mean, I don't know
the
if he's a
problem with
65
Kawhi,
game guy. I don't know if he's a 65 game guy, but
yeah, I was gonna say the difference between Kawhi and Embiid is they're both hurt all year, but Kawhi misses his time as we get to the playoffs and closer to the playoffs. That's the difference.
Yeah, it's a very strange conundrum.
But but I'm excited. You don't want to see anybody get injured, but I'm excited to see what Cleveland can do. With this new opportunity. I'm excited to see. Unfortunately, I don't know. I feel like I might gag when I say this, but I'm looking forward to see what the Knicks can do.
9-1 in the last 10 games.
So the Pacers are only 3.5 back of Philly coming into tonight. So, Tyrese Halliburton, you mentioned they might be closer to 7 or 8 by the time Embiid gets back. So if he does come back, to your argument, because you're a fan of the play-in, how exciting does that make the play-in if Joel Embiid is fighting for his life, so to speak?
I think the play is exciting off the rip just because it's a gamble. Like you should have made it. You should have made it to 6, but now you're at 7, and it's like, man, we really can be gone. Because then you start thinking, because I think the teams at 7 are like, you know what, man, how close were we to 6? Should I have played that road game in Portland that we dropped, or when we let Detroit get one, and now we're 7 instead of 6? Like little things like that. I think that doubt kind of creeps in. That's why the 10. I like the 10 in that matchup because, or like I like the 8 in that matchup because the 7 is like, man, we were so close to 6, and the 8's like, listen, man, we could beat them and we locked in. We're good to go. Like we don't have to keep dealing with this playing stuff. And these guys are like, so.
But we've seen LeBron in the play-in, obviously last year. We saw what Miami did last year. We've seen Steph in the play-in. We've seen Ja Morant in the play-in. So Embiid being in the play-in wouldn't necessarily be a shocker from the standpoint of he's too big for the play-in. Yeah. So I think that would add a new element. That even though I'm not a fan of the play-in, that would be something that I might be ready to tune into to see Embiid with pressure on him. Because for all intents and purposes,
he
was the MVP.
When you're in,
so now, being that him and Kyrie are the first real notable scratches from the award races, because they've both missed enough games that they're not going to be eligible for All NBA and those type of things. So now, I'm interested in the talk around it, because I know we talked about Tyrese Halliburton a little while ago and how I'm for the rule, but I don't like it being tied to the contract.
Yeah, they should have probably. I don't know what the NBA PA was thinking. I don't know if it just didn't come to mind, because the thing
maybe they wanted to smoke weed. I don't know.
I don't think you and I even talked about the impact, because we talked about Ja Morant's suspension costing him money because he didn't make it All NBA team. I didn't think about like just the contracts and the way they're written and what your future contract can look like because of that. So when they agreed to this 65 game modification, it should have come with the caveat of kind of amendment to your contract. Like, listen, that has nothing to do with my contract. Like we gotta figure out some other kind of language to where you got a guy like Tyrese Halliburton who had a legitimate injury. Like, I mean, when he slipped, like he did the splits, and if you're not flexible and you ran that fast, it's like You know, he shouldn't be penalized as much. It says up to $54 million that he can miss out on for
right. And that's where the players, like I said earlier, a wise man once said Vince McMahon didn't screw Bret Hart. Bret Hart screwed Bret Hart. The players screwed the players, you know, because they allowed their money to be a part of the conversation. You know, so I'm on board with all NBA, MVP awards like that not being given to people who missed all these games. And this is the problem, though. Greg Popovich was the engineer of load management. He started this. Right. He got fined the $250,000, but everybody else ran with it. There are consequences to your actions. So when you decide to sit your players out, not only are you hurting your playoff chances or your seeding chances, but you're taking away from the fans. You're taking away. So at what point is it about you to the fact of the detriment of everybody else? So
and what signs do you have that says that that makes the most sense?
They don't have any.
Giving me a night off from a 48-minute basketball game versus giving me 2 days off from practice Tuesday, Wednesday. Like, what's more beneficial to my body? Me not having to come to the building at all and I can sleep in my $15,000 Swedish mattress, or getting up, driving to the building, going through treatment, going through all these drills. It's like, if you planned on sitting me at the game Thursday, then just give me Tuesday and Wednesday off and let me play Thursday. Because that has to be less stress on the body than 2 days of practice.
But see, Joel Embiid is proof of this because he was load managing. He was sitting out due to soreness, due to back problems, due to his feet hurting, whatever it might have been. And look at us now. You know what I'm saying? You can't legislate and try to cheat injuries out of the game. Injuries are going to happen. So that's why we knew when this rule was put into place, we knew there would be collateral damage. There would be people affected, like Tyrese Halliburton, that maybe didn't deserve to be affected in that way.
Like I said, I didn't really think about it like that. I just thought about more of the sense of, well, these guys won't win these awards, and then the whole guilt conversations and things like that, like who was better, because there was gonna be a guy that's gonna play 64 games that was gonna have a better season than the guy who played 66 games and won the award.
Right.
You know, I thought that would be the conversations, like.
But that's why
I didn't really think about their contracts and how that hurt them.
But that's why I always pushed back to Draymond, where he was talking about wait till these bums start winning the awards and see how y'all feel then. And it's like, why are you mad at us? Y'all the ones that didn't want to play. Like,
yeah, but it's still gonna be a top guy winning the award.
Yeah, it's still gonna be a top guy. It'll be Jason Tatum instead of Embiid, or it'll be Giannis instead of Embiid. Like,
or it'll be SGA, who's going to play like 74 games
now,
and he's going to average damn near 30, 37 and 7, something like that. He's going to have the numbers to support it, because most of the top guys, got a guy like Jalen Brunson. These guys are averaging like career best, career highs. They're leading their teams, so you're not going to get, not to pick on Steve Nash again, but Steve Nash was averaging like 16 points and 14 assists or something crazy like that. You won't get somebody like that winning the MVP award because he played 71 games. You're going to get one of these young guys who played 74, 75 games, averaged like 26 to 27 points. Their team is going to be second and third in their conference. One of these players is still going to win it, which I think is what the NBA needs.
Maybe if somebody like Jimmy Butler cared, he could win an MVP.
But I think Jimmy Butler just kind of knows that this team is a post All-Star break push through the playoffs. Team stay fresh, stay healthy, be physical, play together.
In true sports reports ordered fashion, I wouldn't complain unless it was somebody like Julius Randle winning the MVP.
Oh my God, this dude and Julius Randle.
You know what I mean?
Once again, Julius Randle has never put up MVP numbers. So when Draymond said bums, he's talking about like him winning MVP with his triple singles. Like this.
Yeah, look who's not letting people on our show now. Look at that.
Listen, we'll be all right. We'll just get Micah Parsons when Jerry Jones makes him stop doing his podcast. It could be a guest.
But back to the Sixers real quick. you just gotta hope because Maxey is having a career year. So maybe you hope that he has another gear. So, like you said, if Embiid misses 18 games, if you could go 11-7,
Not
I
what
think
I saw tonight.
well, I mean, they beat Utah the other day, but Maxey had to score 43.
Yeah, 40
You
some
know,
points. That's what I'm
yeah.
saying. So it was
Or no,
like
he scored. I think he scored 50.
it was
I
like
don't know.
50. I think he had like 50.
Yeah.
But from what I saw tonight, it looks like the blueprint because it wasn't like Luka had less than 20. I think Kyrie had, I believe it was 19, maybe it was 22. So it wasn't as if these two superstars lit them up. Like I said, this guy he had his third 20-point game of the year against them because, like I said, the ball was rotating, pump faking, and they were just going to the lane. If they can't adjust to that, I mean, let's Mo Bamba can kind of step up and just play the defensive version of Embiid and strictly just do that. And don't worry about any kind of offense. Just play like, all right, yo, let me just go down here, get my Embiid on, and try to be a rim protector without fouling. Because if you don't have that, like if I'm the team, I'm going to the paint every time.
Right.
And whoever's Maxey's guarding, because I know he's going to come down and be the offensive weaponry. I'm
Wear
either put
him
him in
out.
pick and roll, so he has to run into big bodies all day, or whatever guy he has, I'm gonna just try to take him off the
Well, it's
dribble
just
as
like
much as
what
possible,
was
just to
it?
make him work.
When they asked LeBron about playing the Warriors, he said, "Hey, whoever Steph is guarding, go get a bucket."
Yeah, just
Lack of better words.
it's just math. It's just It's only these guys are prime athletes, but there's only so much energy one person can have
Right.
in a
Right.
game this physical. Even though I know people feel like this current age of basketball isn't physical, but I mean, look at Embiid. Embiid 7'2", 285. Can you imagine someone running into a screen with him?
Whew.
And then you got to switch it after you run into him. And then you got to switch it, and then he gets the ball. And now he's 22 feet from the hoop, and he's jab stepping you after you just ran into him. I mean, like it's just chaos. But without that, that's such a huge loss for Philly. And I feel bad because like I said, Philly, the fans are passionate. They're crazy. They really, really, really want a championship. They really want success. I think they put a statue up to for Nick Foles. Like they love Rocky. Rocky's imaginary, like is a story. He's not a real person, but because he's such a winner and a grinder, like it's kind of embodies the city. Embiid is that way.
Rest in peace, Carl Weathers.
It just shout out to Carl Weathers.
But yeah, like
RIP,
but yeah, that's what Philly's on, and that's why they're one of my favorite cities, because I'm a sports guy and they're a sports town. So, speaking of sports, we're talking about sports. So let's get into another sport, the NFL. The coaching carousel has calmed down. All the head coaching positions has been filled. We've got some coordinator movement still going on.
Yeah, so it's a couple teams that don't have any coordinators.
Yeah. So, Mr. Logical, who won the coaching carousel? Who lost the coaching carousel?
I'm gonna say the Chargers. Like, I think because Harbaugh was the big fish, having Justin Herbert, so they can thank Miami for taking Tua back in the day because that essentially sealed their Harbaugh. Because without Herbert, I don't know I don't know why he would go
How
there.
attractive they are, yeah.
Yeah, as a team. So I think that works. And he does have a track record of turning teams around. In the NFL, surprisingly, for how difficult it is of a league to be successful, the turnaround is pretty substantial. So you have 14 teams make the playoffs. Every year, like 8 teams from the previous year don't make it. Excuse me. So you have an opportunity there, and you can almost pencil in Kansas City to win the West potentially. But if Harbaugh can get it there and have impact, but I think the Chargers could be a 5 seed. Some of the other moves, New England hiring Mayo, I like the fact that they hired black coaches and these guys getting chances to show what they can do. I'm just not sure if the philosophy is going to be different enough. Like, I don't know what other types of pieces he will bring in. It's like when I go home and I watch my dad cook, I come back here and I want to cook. I call him. It's like this guy raised me to where I am now. So like he's heavily influenced in the way I cook. So I'm gonna call him. He'll like do this, and this. So if Mayo was influenced so heavily by Bill Belichick, the likelihood of him coming in with the Sean McVay kind of attitude towards game plan is unlikely. So I think you're gonna kind of get the same. Maybe it'll be better. Maybe because he's younger, he can get a little bit more of an influence. This game is still going on. Maybe a little bit more influence. Talking about the Lakers or Clippers Hawks. Hawks down 3, 147, 144 in regulation.
Mm.
So
hey, can we get this 200-point game?
200-point game? I mean, if Paul George messes this up.
I don't know. It ain't the playoffs though. He might not show up tonight, right? Playoff P.
Did they have a foul to give? That was. Oh, they just fouled James Harden. He's a good free throw shooter. I don't know about that move, but I like Vegas keeping Pierce. I think it was just worth it. It just was worth it to see how this plays out because a lot of these other coaches, you're just hoping that it works with your team. Getting that snapshot of Pierce last season, beating the Chiefs in Arrowhead, the 65 points they put up on the Chargers. I think you're like, you know what? I've seen enough here. This is something else that doesn't make any sense. I think I brought it up the last show. When people say, "Oh, you hired a defensive coach and now you got to draft this young quarterback," how is he going to be able to help? Like, he's a defensive coach. He's going to hire an offensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator can help the quarterback grow. Like, the head coach doesn't have to be the only person watering the proverbial flowers of talent on the team. So if you need what's going on here? I'm watching this. Oh, and that's ball game. 149, 144. Clippers beat the Hawks in Atlanta. So
that close.
Seattle going to McDonald's. People's like, oh, you went from defense coach to another defense coach. Yeah, it's like it's a 50-50 shot. You're either going to get a defensive coach or an offensive coach. Andy Reid being an offensive coach is great. The reason it looks like it's a wonderful move is because he has a top flight quarterback. Sean McDermott looks like it's a bad move, but he still has a top flight quarterback, but he doesn't always make game time winning plays. Same thing with Dan Campbell and Jared Goff. Jared Goff is a very, very good quarterback. It just, these guys don't always make the winning play. Mahomes seems to put himself in position to make winning plays. Lamar, John Harbaugh was a special teams coach. I don't even know if he was considered offense or defense, but
just special teams.
Just bring in the right coaches and coordinators and weapons around them, and then you let them handle it. Eric Mangini said something pretty interesting. He was like, a defensive head coach, when he comes in, he's more likely to allow the offensive coaches to use the early draft picks on the best available offensive players, because he feels as a defensive coach, the pieces we have in place here,
I can make it work.
The pieces we get late, I can make it work because my scheme defensively, I can teach and I can make it work. Whereas I'm going to give you an opportunity to get, there could be a 6'5" defensive end at 12 or a 6'5" wide receiver at 12. I'm going to let you get the wide receiver at 12 that's rated, top 15 in the draft boards. And we can go get another guy in the third round that I can make a good defensive end with my scheme. So it's all about balancing on making it work, because Kansas City has a top 2 defense in the league with Eric Bieniemy the past couple of years and Andy Reid this year. Like, these guys are offensive coaches, but
right.
Chris Jones is probably one of the most dominant defensive tackles. Sean McVay, offensive coach, but Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald won him a ring. So it's just like that kind of thing. So I think Carolina put themselves in a position where they're going to be firing that coach within the year and a half and drafting another quarterback. I think Tennessee made a good move hiring a legacy guy. So, like I said, he could do the Shanahan thing where he can just kind of maybe hire his dad as a consultant, maybe just make him an unofficial consultant, just kind of get that old school, information. But yeah, I mean, you already know my feelings on Atlanta. And the Washington move, I'm not really sure about with Quinn, and he hasn't really retained the offensive coordinator yet. So that's up for you. Like, what do you think? Because that's your squad. I rambled on long enough.
I like it. I'm not a fan of Dan Quinn. I like the coordinators that he hired. I'm good with Cliff Kingsbury, seeing what he's done with quarterbacks in the past. So as a team that's in position to draft a young quarterback, or if they decide to stick with Sam Howell or whichever happens, I feel confident that he can get something out of them. Not that Bieniemy couldn't, but now with the off season where you can go get free agents, tool around the team, you give Kingsbury a better start than Bieniemy had. I think that with the defensive coordinator hire, I like him a lot. I've heard nothing but great things. Obviously, he was a secondary coach, so defensive back is my favorite position. So I like that. But from what I've been hearing from talking to Cowboy fans and just their overall thoughts, it made me feel a lot better about it. They still don't like Dan Quinn per se, but I think I'm fighting my own inner bias because whenever I think of Dan Quinn, you know what I think about. I'm not going to say it again, but you know what I think about. And, I also don't know if he's a builder per se, because we know him as the architect of the Legion of Boom, but Pete Carroll pretty much put that team together. He was the head coach and ran that team.
And I believe he was also GM.
Yeah, he was the GM. Dan Quinn was able to just focus on that. I don't know if
implementing the Pete Carroll scheme.
Right. I don't know.
He brought it to Atlanta. Atlanta's defense wasn't great. Like whole, like the
no, they were 27th that year that they made the Super Bowl.
But because they started off so poorly early in the year, that what they ended up doing was he kind of dumbed it down later in the year, because I believe at one point, so after about 10 weeks, they were 6-4 I believe they had a bye, and in that he was like, you know what, I'm gonna get rid of some of this stuff. I just want you young guys to play fast. Everybody just get to the ball, try to get the ball out. So they started causing more turnovers. You saw it in the NFC Championship game and in the Super Bowl. They had to strip LeGarrette Blount, and they had to pick six. So it just was like, just play fast. Just play fast. I'll figure out how to teach you guys this stuff this next offseason. Right now, these 10 games in, we have a high-flying offense. Just play fast, bend, don't break, maybe get a turnover in the red zone, and they caused a couple against Green Bay, the turnovers in the red zone, and then the Falcons came down. That's my boy. Shout out to Ray Ramos. What would Ramos do? Back in Korea, PRD. I mean, so that was my Kunsan Connect. So appreciate that. Yeah. It's tough when your season ends twice the way Dan Quinn's seasons have ended. Like these, not necessarily like the San Francisco losses, but
even the Green Bay
Atlanta 28-3, the Green Bay loss. They were so bad that it makes you look like, are you a good coach, or were you in a good circumstance while coaching?
Right.
So
and that's what I'm afraid of. That's what I'm afraid of. But conversely, that's my word when I'm typing papers and stuff. Conversely, I
like subsequently. I use that a lot.
I love McDonald. McDonald is the coach that I wanted. Apparently, the Commanders made an offer, but then Seattle backed up the Brinks truck and was like, "We'll take him off your hands," or whatever. So,
What they give him? Did they give him this $15 million?
I didn't see the numbers. I just saw reports that were saying that Washington was pretty close to signing him, but then Seattle offered more. I like him, and I think he's also going to the most playoff-ready team. They were a game away from the playoffs this year. If some things would have happened in Week 18, they have the defensive backs in place with Witherspoon and Woolen. to be able to at least do the back end stuff that he did in Baltimore. What I like about him is that with his scheme, Baltimore was able to lead the league in sacks and generate pressure without necessarily having to blitz.
Correct.
So what that shows me is that he's good at adjustments. He thinks outside the box. If something's not going right, unlike Todd Monken on offense.
That second half against Kansas City, where Kansas City came out like gangbusters in the first half.
Right.
And we can say, like I know I personally said, like, I think they were just kind of playing the odds of we're up 2 possessions. Baltimore's not adjusting to our defense. Let's not give Baltimore any momentum. Let's not throw that pass that gets tipped and intercepted. Let's just milk this clock.
Right.
But even a run game, they were filling these gaps, and he started bringing Hamilton in the box more towards the second half. It's like, yo, take him out of coverage because they're not throwing it. Just come to the box. And he was wrapping Pacheco up. Pacheco's a tough guy to bring down. Him and Roquan Swift were in the backfield that whole second half. So see the way his season ended, you have optimism in Seattle. Like, okay, this guy does know. He doesn't, he has a scheme that works. Whereas Dan Quinn is like, we don't know if your scheme works.
Right.
We don't know if you can handle big moments. Like, Ray is that just commented. He's a Cowboys fan, big Cowboys fan. So, I'm pretty sure they're happy he's gone because they feel like he chokes. The problem is they're gonna have to keep Dak, and Dak's gonna get.
And I know Dallas
the same way about Dak.
I know Dallas Mike always likes to bring up Dan Quinn's record against his
former
head coaches or whatever. Stuff like that. Yeah. So we'll see how that works out in the future. But yeah, I like McDonald. Now Seattle has a decision to make. Are we going to go through another year of Geno Smith and groom someone, or are we going to stick with Geno? So they have that decision to make. They got 2 good running backs, Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. So I think Seattle's set up in a good position if McDonald is what I think he is. The Chargers go without saying. They obviously have that mountain called Mahomes to climb in their division.
Yeah.
But they have talent. They've always had talent throughout the last few years. I just don't think they had the coach that was able to maximize their talent. What I don't like about Harbaugh is he went back to the well and brought in his boy Greg Roman. And I just think that the league has changed since Kaepernick was terrorizing people. We saw Greg Roman in Baltimore, and we saw how that went. So I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Like I told you, I saw his facial hair, and I was like, I didn't like his decision making just based off of that.
Oh, okay.
But like, I don't know. I understand stability and familiarity, but I don't know what Greg Roman and Justin Herbert. I don't know if that works.
What that looks like. Yeah.
If you want to roll,
going to have Herbert out here doing read options and trying to look like Josh Allen or something.
I mean, I didn't think Baltimore's passing game was ever dynamic. I thought Lamar was essentially only throwing the tight ends because they had Hayden Hurst at one point and Mark Andrews and another tight end. They were running a lot of 3 tight end sets, similar to the Kaepernick offense with what's the boy named Vernon Davis. And so I think they would just, if you're gonna run that kind of offense, I don't know if it's going to work. If you're trying to bring this Michigan toughness, muscle, can unlock Herbert's skill, I had high expectations. His rookie year was a great year because I think he was playing. Thanks for the comment, Ramos.
Yes,
I think
he
was playing great because I don't know if there was any expectations for the team. He just kind of got thrown in there week 1 when the doctor punctured his lung. I'm like, I don't know how a doctor performs that poorly. I think Tyrod sued him. I don't know what the outcome of that was.
Maybe it was rigged.
I like Justin Herbert, but I think what we get is that he might have had the that Nick Foles 27 touchdowns, 2-pick year. And now I'm using one of your phrases. He might be coming back to the mean where he's going to be your 23 to 26 touchdowns, 8 to 12 picks a year guy.
I think that Jim Harbaugh is going to be the best thing that ever happened to Justin Herbert. Outside of the fact that he's a former quarterback, he's a coach that emphasizes the run. So, you got Herbert out here throwing more passes in his first couple of seasons than Peyton Manning did. But for what? And to only get 25 touchdowns when you threw 700 passes to begin with.
Yeah,
so
they're throwing like 50 passes and have like 20 points at the end of the game.
Yeah, so they're in cap hell right now. So I imagine that Austin Eckler's going to go. They still have Joshua Kelly. We'll see if they have to make moves because I think I saw they were like 45 million over the cap or something like that. So
and historically, the Spanos family,
they don't spend.
They've been talked about as a team that doesn't ownership group that doesn't spend a lot of money.
Right. But
maybe
they
you
did
move
spend
Khalil Mack.
That's
different because it's not against the salary cap.
No,
I
know, but that's still something that you wouldn't expect. I mean, they hired Brandon Staley last time.
Brandon Staley, it was a good pick considering the typical path that most teams do. They hire one of the better teams, one of the Final Four teams coordinators as their head coach. It's almost like those 8 guys that make it to the championship round can pretty much expect phone calls from every available slot. That's just pretty standard.
Well, I'm just interested to see what they do because I was thinking that they're going to have to probably come off of somebody like Khalil Mack.
They're going to have to. You got to find a contender. Like, is Buffalo willing to give you a 4th and a 5th for Khalil Mack just to kind of sure up just that we got to go for it now?
Yeah, so I'm thinking I'm going to be looking for the Chargers in about 2 years from now. They could make the playoffs this year if they can get the run game going, but I think we're 2 years away from them really making
I think they have a competent quarterback in place. If you think about it, was it 32 teams? You probably got about 12 guys that you can be like, all right, this team is locked in. Like if you just think about all the teams, if you go AFC, Buffalo's pretty well locked in. Kansas City's locked in.
Cincinnati's
locked in. Baltimore's locked in.
Miami.
Houston's locked in. Miami might have to figure out a contract situation with Tua because he might get franchise tag, and that's nearly $50 million right now.
You might as well sign him.
You might as well sign him. Yeah.
So franchise him. Yeah.
Do I franchise you and see what we got for you 50 years? So we'll give them that because they have to do something. So I think they're pretty much locked in. Jacksonville, I think they're pretty much solid at QB. So that's 7 out of the 16. So and you throw Justin in there. So you got half the AFC is pretty much locked. Everybody else is kind of in shambles. So I think just that alone, just being one of 8 teams that's fully sure at the quarterback position in your division should get you a shot for 5, 6, or 7 in the playoffs.
Right.
Because Indy, they don't know who they're going to run with Gardner Minshew.
No.
Tennessee, who are they going to run it with? Cleveland, Deshaun, his injury history, what's going on there? Pittsburgh does not have a quarterback. So, you have an opportunity with a coach that seems to have a very simple game plan. I mean, J.J. McCarthy's talked about as being a top draft pick, and I can't think of a game where he had to throw Michigan to victory because of the way that they operate. And if Justin Herbert can get that kind of set up to where he can just dink and dunk and throw 28 to 32 passes, and they can run the ball for 130, 140 yards a game, I think you got a shot.
I agree with you on Carolina. And I saw that they're retaining their defensive coordinator today. But as I look at the head coaching hire, he's been around the league, David Canales. He's been around the league. He has experience, but this was his first year as an offensive coordinator. I think people are jumping the gun and trying to give him too much credit for Baker Mayfield's turn around. when Baker Mayfield was a good quarterback that just had
He never fell
circumstances.
off.
Yeah, he just had
fell off.
circumstances. And so I think that Carolina jumped the gun because they thought, hey, we could get the guy that fixed Baker Mayfield to come in here with our rookie, and he could throw more than 11 touchdowns next year. So, like, yeah, he should throw more than 11 touchdowns because hopefully you'll go get some damn receivers. But
I was talking about this at work today. Every young quarterback needs a big target because I had a coworker, he's a Buffalo Bills fan. I kind of let him, rest for a couple of weeks since they lost. But he came and asked me, he's like, what I thought of, the Raheem Morris hire. And I was like, I wish it was, he's like, it just was blah move. It just was like a underwhelming move. I'm like, that's what I figured they were going to do. They're going to post all these things about all these people they're interviewing and then go get some random special teams coach as the head coach.
And he was on that Dan Quinn staff.
Yeah. So, what I said about the Atlanta, he was like, I'd be on the phone with Chicago trying to get Justin Fields. And I was like, because Atlanta has big targets. Mac Hollins, Jonnu Smith, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. 6'3", 6'4", 6'5".
Hey, Corduroy is tall, but they use him as a running back.
And I think he's 6'4". And then you have Bijan Robinson, who's dynamic out of back. Like I said, I wouldn't have drafted a running back 8, but you have him, he's dynamic, and you have Algier. So just that, if you can keep all of those skill position guys, I don't know what the money's going to cost. I don't know what Jonnu Smith's contract is looking like, but you can keep all those guys, and you can get Justin Fields.
You know what Atlanta could be?
That's what Carolina needs. Carolina needs that big 6'5" target where when he has to roll out of the pocket because it's collapsing on him, get it to this big target. Because that's what Baker Mayfield had.
You know what Atlanta could be? You know what Atlanta with Justin Fields could be? They could be what Baltimore thinks they are.
Ooh, I like that. Keep it 100. Like if Baker Mayfield wasn't due a bunch of money, I think he could do damage with the Atlanta weapons.
Definitely. But if it's Tampa, you got to bring him back.
You got to bring him back. In Atlanta, I don't know if you can bring him in at $30 million a year, $35 million a year, because I think that's going to be his number. I think he's like a 3-year, 105 deal. I think that's a good number for him. I don't know if he got his swag back and feels like my swag is worth $40 million a year. And you're trying to give me $30 million, but my swag says it's 40, and he has another situation where he has to leave. But 3 years, 105, I think that's a realistic number for him.
So Antonio Pierce, playtime is over. I like Antonio Pierce. I'm wishing him the best. But now the rubber has to meet the road. What coordinator hires is he going to make? He had Kingsbury, we thought, and then Kingsbury pulled out at the last minute. So where do you go? Do you go be enemy from there, or But
did Kingsbury pull out because Washington's going to move up the one to get Caleb Williams?
Maybe, but with Pierce, see, you talked about Jarrett Mayo and Bill Belichick. Pierce's old head is Herm Edwards. So, so does he have that Herm in him, both I'm looking at this from a positive and a negative standpoint, where Herm can motivate you, but then eventually
it doesn't translate to victories. Yeah.
Yeah, you tune them out, because last year the Raiders weren't good. He just motivated them. He just spoke to them. He related to them, I believe. And they played hard for him.
So Jimmy G, was Jimmy G a Josh McDaniels decision?
He had to be with the whole New England background.
Because it just seems as if
but he got hurt too.
They didn't even ask Jimmy if he was ever ready to play. Normally, when a quarterback is backing up and he comes off an injury, every week all we talk about is, hey, are you going to be in the starting lineup? Blah, 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 blah. I don't think I ever heard any conversations about Jimmy G ever starting again. I seen him on the sidelines a lot in shoulder pads.
Yeah. And
he just was content. He just smiling over there, just looking handsome, happy to get it back.
They spent the rest of the year starting a 5th-round draft pick.
Who did nothing. He didn't.
Who got sacked 6 times in his first game. But get rid of the ball, young man. But as I look at this, are the Raiders. in the market to draft a quarterback, or do you try to run it back with Jimmy G potentially? You
All right, let me
know,
check the draft order and see.
and then on top of that, Tennessee, Brian Callahan. I like your point about hiring his dad. I just don't know what to expect. Like I said, like he didn't call his plays in Cincinnati. Zach Taylor did all the play calling. So I truly have no idea about this guy. He's 39. So you hope that he's another McVay young prodigy that once he has his opportunity, he's going to shock the world. But as we like to look at the division he's in. He's in there with Stroud and Lawrence. He's in there with Anthony Richardson once he gets back. So these other three teams in their division are established. The Colts get a few defensive pieces in there. Houston keeps adding to the defense. Jacksonville, I think Jacksonville is pretty good right now. They ran into some injury issues late. So
But I
you're
think
in an
Jacksonville
uphill
could
battle.
potentially be in the situation where they're coming to the season with their coach on the hot seat and questions about their quarterbacks winning DNA. Because I know he won a lot in high school and in college, but it's like, okay, have you hit your ceiling? Because now they got to pay him because his money conversation is coming up.
Right.
So it's like, how are you going to pay him? Because he looks the part of a Josh Allen, Justin Herbert level extension kind of quarterback. Like, I don't think he's going to get the 3-year 105 that Baker's going to get.
Right.
Team that drafted you as your first extension, it's going to be huge. Is it before Dak gets his 4-year 240 or 4-year 220 or whatever that number is, and then you kind of base off of that, and then now he gets a 5-year. Yeah, so it could be crazy. Is Will Levis's ego manageable? Because some people are just fired up. I know a lot of football players. Like I said, I had 2 of my sons play football. One is very level-headed. Even when he gets a strip sack or the team gets a pick six, he comes over to the sideline. He's checking with the defensive coordinator, checking the Microsoft Service tablet to see what the play was, see how it happened. He's super methodical. My other son is flashy. Tapes his wrists, the towel, the visor. He does all the flash stuff. Good football player. He's just different. He likes to throw the bombs when he's playing quarterback, or he likes to run over guys when he's playing running back, and he's linebacker. He's going for the strip sack. Like, he's out there to make plays that are impactful so he can do his little celebration of afterwards. 2 different personalities, same sport. I think they play the same position for a lot of the time too, like the heavy running back, big running back, and outside linebacker. Played it completely different. Will Levis does not have Trevor Lawrence kind of like calm during success. He throws a deep touchdown. It's chest bumps and helmets off and all these theatrical stuff is like, but it's the same way when he throws an interception.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same way when DeAndre Hopkins didn't run the right route correctly or they miscommunicated. Can he funnel that in? Because if he can't, it's gonna be a rough year because that ego from a young guy he was a late round pick. He kind of got the claim because he just looks the part.
And he ain't going to have that pull in case of emergency anymore either. Well, AKA Derrick Henry. To make life easier for him.
Yeah, Derrick Henry's going to be a huge loss. But Carolina, this is how you go get a player like that. You go get a veteran that you can just have your young quarterback give the ball to 18 times a game. Get him a screen pass.
Get him Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler, same thing. You got to make these moves to make it easier on the young guy. It's already a complicated position. We saw the little helmet cam footage of Tua in training camp.
Right.
You ever see that?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So it was like, I didn't realize like how difficult it is to see. Because when we let that ball go, I was like, how do he know that this dude was open? And it moves so fast. Get him somebody in the middle of the field that can make it easy. But like I said, can Callahan rein in the ego and the exuberance of Will Levis?
And then finally, the one thing, you brought up Mayo and Belichick.
Correct.
Is Mayo going to be an extension of Belichick?
Without a doubt. We're going to just
the
call it now. It's going to look exactly the same.
Well, I would like to think, obviously we don't have any proof because we haven't seen it yet. I would like to think that the age difference would play a role here where it might look slightly different. Like it's not going to be too different as far as it looks like a Ferrari and now it looks like a Camry. I don't think we're going to go that far along. You know what I mean?
Alex Van Pelt is the offensive coordinator.
Yes. Yeah, formerly of Cleveland.
Yeah, it's going to look exactly the same because when have you seen Cleveland with even with Odell Beckham Jr. and Baker Mayfield that year that they made that playoff run? Baker wasn't out there like.
Does it matter that they're losing Steven Belichick?
No, because I think he probably knows as much about the New England style defense as Mayo does. Mayo played it, and then he also coached it under Belichick. So playing it, seeing it, can speak to why it works, and then knowing the ins and out of it as a coach is different than Steve.
I mean, at the end of the day, they just got to put talent in New England is what it comes down to. If they're going to keep Mac Jones, I don't know if they are or not. I don't think they are. But whoever their quarterback is needs targets and somebody to throw to outside of something called Juju. They're going to need – I don't know if they're bringing Zeke back. They have Ramondre Stevenson. But I don't know if Zeke's going to come back as well. They just have a bad team is what it comes down to. So even if they kept Belichick another year and replaced some parts, it wouldn't go well. So this is a rebuild in every sense of the word.
So Steve Belichick went to Washington, the University of Washington.
Yes, under Jed Fish, who was the quarterback.
When you sent it to me, I thought he was Washington Commanders because when you sent it, I thought he was going to the Commanders. I was like, that's why I said, really?
No, he's going with Jed Fish. Like I said, Jed Fish was the quarterbacks coach for the Patriots in 2020, so they have that connection. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I think that a lot of teams that hired coaches this year, they, for the most part, they did the right thing. I don't know if they got the right person, but they did the right thing because I think McDonald provides a certain stability in Seattle that, like, he's not Pete Carroll, but I view him as stable. Washington has the worst defense in the league. They went and got a defensive guy to be their head coach. The Patriots have only known this type of success under Bill Belichick. They hired a Belichick disciple. Even though I think they should have moved a different direction, they hired a Belichick disciple, familiarity, what they know. Tennessee has a young quarterback. They brought in an offensive coordinator. Carolina, I don't know what they were thinking, but they got a young quarterback. They brought in an offensive coordinator. The Chargers need a leader, and they went out and got a leader.
Yeah, their last couple of coaches haven't really. And I think being in LA, and like the hierarchy of sports in LA, the Chargers aren't high on it. They might be higher than the Anaheim Angels. Maybe slightly. Maybe.
Well, maybe now because Shohei's gone, but not when Shohei was still there.
Yeah, so they needed something, and like I said, that was the big fish. They had the biggest trump card in all of the available teams. I think Raheem Morris. I like that he got the job. I just don't know how well it's gonna fare for him because I think I don't want to say short leash because that's just like this man's not a dog. I just don't understand how long he will be able to rebuild, considering that he was part of the regime before. So it's like I don't know how much time he's going to get.
Right.
Arthur Blank doesn't really fire coaches. I mean, Arthur Smith got 3 years. and he should have been fired at the end of last season because I was like, this isn't
100%.
working.
100%.
It is not working. But the fact that Raheem Morris didn't get hired the last cycle when they interviewed guys after they fired Dan Quinn, and then you bring him in after you hired the guy that you shouldn't have hired anyway. I don't know. I just don't know how long that relationship lasts. Unless they feel like, you know what, we made a mistake by not hiring you 3 years ago.
Don't mind me. I'm trying to practice. I'm practicing saying this name that I'm about to
okay.
say.
All right. So, but yeah, like I said, Carolina.
Yeah.
Unless this guy must be cheap because I believe he is still paying I think.
Yes, they're paying Matt Rule. They're paying
Wright, and this guy.
And yeah.
Of course, and I think they fired a coordinator. So I'm pretty sure his contract's I think they fired Joe Brady because they hired him out of LSU.
Yes,
correct?
He went to Buffalo. Yeah.
So maybe they're not still paying him because he got another job. I know the NBA is kind of like that, where if you get another job, then your old team doesn't have to pay you. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see it because I think all these teams need a bit of an overhaul. A couple of them are going to make the playoffs. I just don't know which ones.
Yeah,
so that's the exciting part.
I mean, obviously, in about 27 days or so, it'll be the month of March. So we'll get into free agency, and then we'll come back and reevaluate. There you go.
Who's gonna land Khalil Mack and Stephon Gilmore to their defense? Because I think
Washington.
Those both I say go for it, man. Swing for the fences.
But yeah, so college football got some drama going on. You have the attorney generals of the states of Tennessee and Virginia suing the NCAA because the NCAA is trying to enforce guidelines as if they are rules. What this boils down to is Tennessee's recruitment of, all right, here we go, Nico Yamaliava.
Okay.
There you go. Yamaliava.
I'm going to say Nico. Nico the QB.
Nico.
I don't know how you got to Tennessee. I don't know how you get a kid from California to go play football in Tennessee.
Hey, it just means more. But so allegedly what's going on here is Tennessee was talking to Nico about NIL type things before he committed to Tennessee, and they did some other things that the NCAA frowns upon. Why is this important? Because a couple of years ago, former Tennessee head coach Jeremy Pruitt got in trouble for some recruiting violations, and Tennessee does not want to become a repeat offender because there's extra penalties and things that come with that if they're found guilty of this. Now, we've seen the NCAA in action over the past few months. My beloved Seminoles, of course.
Absolutely.
Offensive coordinator Alex Atkins got caught allegedly doing, or I shouldn't say allegedly, they got punished for some NIL improprieties. So just to give you an idea of some of those probation items, because people always say they're on probation, but what the hell does that mean?
Correct.
I'm not going to read all of these bullet points because it's probably about 12 of them, but I'm going to just hit on a couple of them. So they have to get education on NCAA compliance, informing prospects in the football program and writing about all the violations. So they have to educate the coaches. Coaches have to educate the players, so on and so forth, about the violations. The head coach, the assistant coach involved has a 2-year show cause. So usually in those scenarios, that's a coach without a job that can't be hired by other teams. So he got his own punishment there. They are on a restriction for that coach to recruit during the fall of this past season. So he couldn't do any recruiting this past year.
So he's a coach that can't be hired, can't be fired, just has to sit in limbo.
Well, he's suspended for 3 games, but if he didn't have a job. So, for example, when Ohio State had the thing with Terrell Pryor, the tattoos, correct, all that stuff, Jim Tressel had, I believe it was a 2-year show cause. which just meant that
But he
nobody
went to the NFL,
right, and it didn't
and
carry over.
and no,
Right.
no,
But he sat. He
he
sat.
sat for 6 games. I think he went to the Colts, right?
Yo, you
He
talking
went to
about Pryor? I was talking about Tressel. Yeah, yeah.
Tressel. Yeah, I think
He went to
Tressel
the Raiders.
he went to the league and
Yeah,
then like
he was suspended.
volunteered to suspend for 6 games. I was like, what kind of nonsense? Okay, NCAA has been tripping forever,
Well,
but it just popped in my head. It was like,
well, that was what was happening with
instead
Jim
of punishing
Harbaugh.
Ohio State.
Well, that was what was happening with Jim Harbaugh. The thought was that you can't run to the NFL to get away from this. Like, if we find you guilty, the NFL doesn't have to, can punish you. You know, which is BS on a whole nother level. But
That's
whatever.
like your new job. You know,
Punishing you because you were late at your last job.
Late at your last job.
So basically, Tennessee and Virginia said we had enough. There are no rules to govern NIL. We know what NIL is, as far as these players, these students can get contracts for their services. They can make money off of their name, image, and likeness. But there is no regulation. So, like, imagine, being at work. You don't have an AFI or an AFMAN. You don't have a TO. You just got a policy letter. So your commander says, this is how I run our PT program. Well, sir, there's a whole AFI out here that hopefully you consulted before you made your policy letter. There's nothing on the books from the NCAA that says NIL, you must, outside of you can't negotiate the NIL deal until the player is on campus. So that's where Tennessee is getting in trouble here.
So that the school can't talk NIL deal with the player.
Right. As I'm recruiting you, I come to your living room to try to get you to come to my school. I can't talk about NIL.
So I can't tell you that being the Alabama starting quarterback is going to net you some money potentially.
I mean, I'm sure they do, but you're not supposed to. You know what I mean? So
that's a silly, unnecessary rule.
But that's the problem, is that the whole thing is still set up for the players to be the people getting screwed at the end of it. So, like, yeah, this coach is on his show cause. He's going to be suspended 3 games. But you got a player like Jaden Rashada, who was supposed to get $13 million or so from Florida, and Florida wasn't able to come up with the money. Now he's at Arizona State, making obviously probably significantly less than $13 million. Now the NCAA is investigating Florida to figure out what happened with his NIL deal. But their head coach, Billy Napier, has come out and stated publicly the NCAA doesn't allow him to share what happened with the deal. So everything is still behind closed doors. And my problem with the NIL and all this is the collectives, because the schools aren't on the hook for paying these players. Right. Fans are paying these players. Boosters and fans are raising money to pay these players. So you're taking money out of my pocket to get the player that you want and still charging me to come to this game and buy season tickets or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, wow. Florida State in the final 12 next year, we're gonna have to get some of these top 12 guys. And one thing that I heard, because I was watching a podcast, and the notion was, how is Missouri getting top 5 player in the country? How is Texas Tech getting the top 12 quarterback? Well, at some point, all the schools are going to have to eat.
Right.
You gave the blanket, essentially, the money should be guaranteed. Like, it should be a package deal. It should be room, board, all the hoodies and gloves and cleats you get that come to the football team, and this is a package deal from our boosters.
Right.
It should be because we're acting as if I go to McDonald's and I order the combo, the guy at the register doesn't say, hey, we have drinks available. These are the flavors. but I can't give them to you until after I give you this food. I'm like, the
Right.
drink comes with the meal. The money comes with me come to this school. So why are we acting as if like trying to piss in my pocket and tell me it's raining? We all know that the money comes with you coming to the school. That's the whole point of the NIL. You're
Right.
gonna maximize that. So if I am a top 12 guy and my Instagram buzz is big and I'm on these 7-on-7 circuits or I'm on Elite 11 that's on the ESPN, because we all knew Trevor Lawrence and Tua and all these quarterbacks from Elite 11, Justin Fields, from the Netflix documentaries. We saw Spencer Rattler on his Netflix documentary when he still was in high school. So if Netflix can put me on their show, or if ESPN can put me on TV, and all these things can happen, then I know that when I see Patrick Mahomes in a Head and Shoulders commercial, it's because Head and Shoulders paid Patrick Mahomes. So if you're gonna put
Right.
me on Netflix, cut me a check. If you're gonna follow me around my high school to put your show on, cut me a check. I'm not doing this for free. The same way I know no one does it for free. Kim Kardashian gets like $1 million just to post random stuff on Instagram. They know that. These 18 and 19-year-old guys that are going to college, they know this money comes along with whatever level of fame that they have ascended to.
Right.
Maybe some guys think that they're gonna get this 13 million and they commit and they don't do their due diligence to make sure that the booster that is potentially assigned to getting that money is good for it. I don't know how you fix that, but I think that's a excuse me, a problem with the player and so forth. But we know the money is coming. So if I'm in California, if I'm on a recruiting trip to California and my college is in Colorado and I know it's in the snow and I'm trying to get the top quarterback to come to Colorado, Dion's for sure, you know that Dion's going to get you an NIL deal. He's going to get you Nike cleats that are personalized by him. He'll get you a contact over at Nike from the guy at
Yeah, and
Oregon.
congratulations, Travis Hunter, on your engagement. You know,
Absolutely. Congrats.
but
Congrats.
but no, but for sure, Master Powell, I agree. Like it should be guaranteed. It's a contract. We always talk about how players, no matter the sport, should honor their contract. Everybody involved in the contract should honor the
Needs to honor the
contract.
contract.
Now I understand the NFL, professional sports is a little different, but these are college kids that we're talking about. And the schools are out here collecting all this TV money. Basically like the Big Ten is making what, 7 billion, from
Crazy
Fox and
money.
everybody for their TV deal is CBS, but the players aren't getting any of that. We ain't turning on the TV to watch Tony Patini, who is the Big Ten commissioner that replaced Kevin Warren, but now what I like, is the Big Ten and the SEC have created an advisory board, so we'll see what that entails. But the first thing I think is going to come up is the playoff. As we know, playoff is expanding to 12 teams this next season.
Correct.
The contract for that runs out in 2026. And there has been talk and rumors that Patini, in particular, wants to make this 14 to 16 teams. There's been rumors that Sankey, the SEC commissioner, wants to get rid of the automatic bids. So I'm at a point where
I think the automatic bids are going to go first.
Like this is the problem. So right now we have 6 and 6. You have 6 automatic bids and 6 at-larges. So you had your Power 5 conferences to include the Pac-12 and your one G5, highest-ranked G5 champion. And then you were going to have your at-larges, which was going to be a bunch of Big Ten SEC teams anyway.
Correct.
So by getting rid of the at-larges, we've been talking about it, right? AFC, yeah. NFC, you get rid of those at-large bitches. Those at-large bitches, those at-large bids, you start to phase out the ACC. You start to phase out the Big 12 a little bit, where those conferences might get a team in if they're undefeated, but otherwise it's a SEC Big 10 invitation.
But that's the thing. It's already that coming in. Like, it's not about fairness. It's about matchups.
It's about dollars.
people talk about, like I said, my get off my chest NFL being rigged. NCAA told you when they made this committee 9, 10 years ago, yo, we don't care about none of that. We just want to get we're trying to fill Dallas Stadium. We're trying to fill
The
the
Rose Bowl,
the Rose Bowl. We're trying
Orange
to
Bowl,
fill the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We're trying to fill the
compressor.
Caesar's Palace Superdome or whatever they call the stadium in New Orleans. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get 3 great games out of these 4 teams.
Right.
That's it. We don't care about how you feel, nothing like. So with 12 teams, I do like the at large because it does give a David versus Goliath potential. But the NIL is the piece that's going to allow, essentially what's going to allow is players are going to make good and bad decisions, because even without money, players are making decisions that, like I said, I'll use Quinn Ewers as an example. He went to Ohio State early. I think Justin Fields might have still been there, and CJ Stroud was next. Or like at least they had CJ Stroud definitely was going to be the starter for sure. I'm like, you left Texas when you could have just finished up high school. He left high school early, graduated early, and enrolled in Ohio State just to transfer back to Texas. Arch Manning transferred or picked Texas when they had a guy, Quinn Ewers, who was the #1 quarterback in the country, and their 2-year starter. So like now you're sitting behind this guy potentially for another year. So players are going to make their decisions good, bad, or indifferent. And I hate when coaches come on and try to say, we're not really protecting the player. They don't know anything about taxes. Well, teach them about taxes when they get their money. But allow them an opportunity to get their money.
You're a institution of higher education.
Yeah, you can. You have a professor of economics there. You have a head of the economics department. They can come teach all the players who got NIL money in a tutoring session. This is how you do your taxes, or whatever they got to do, or bring in an advisor. Because I'm pretty sure that the highest paid person on that campus, probably the football coach, has a financial advisor. Just have that guy come teach these kids how to handle the money. Because the narrative surrounding the players is that they're going to make poor decisions. They're going to make poor decisions anyway. They're going to transfer in and out. All stuff is going to happen. The coaches just want the leverage back.
Right. That's all it is.
They have to now cater to, like I said, my own 2 sons are
coaches going to the NFL.
Yeah, I have 2, like I said, in my own house, I had 2 different personality football players. One kid might have been good with just coming there and getting a regular NIL deal. My other son was, he played quarterback as a freshman. Maybe he'll try it again. And maybe you go through high school and you're a top rated quarterback. The acclaim you get from that is going to garner a different kind of recruiting response.
Right.
The coaches just have to adjust to the fact that you have to make adjustments to your recruiting stance. So either you get younger scouts that can relate closer to the players and let them be your messenger, and then you come in like the CEO after you get the scout to find the artist, you get the artist, you get the lawyers, get everybody together, they sign the contract, and then you come in and then you make the introduction. How you doing, son? I'm Coach Rutley. I'm going to be your coach for the next 4 years. Just separate yourself from it completely. Just, hey, I want this guy. Send people out there that can relate. It's like you have to make these adjustments. It's not going to be just the way you want it simply because that's how it used to be 8, 9, 10 years ago.
Right.
That's the only thing, because it's not that complicated of a process. All it is saying, like, you are an athlete and you can get paid for what you do. The same way if I was a physics major, I could charge someone $50 to tutor them. As a football player, I can now charge a gym in the local area $10,000 for me to be their spokesperson, and I come there.
You can run a camp there.
I can run camps. I could do whatever. Yeah. Like, that's all it is. It's not that complicated of a process. The problem is they are promising too much to try to ensure that they get these guys without having to recruit them. They figure if I just throw money at them, then that's going to be enough. And when it doesn't work out, when you don't have the money and you lose the guy, now all of a sudden NIL is a problem. Now all of a sudden the transfer portal is a problem.
That's why I told you.
USC's not complaining about the transfer portal. They're not complaining about NIL deals because they're getting the money. Alabama's not complaining about the transfer portal. They're getting the money.
But that's the thing. Since Alabama got affected, expect change. But one piece of news that you will like as well is the Attorney General of the state of West Virginia. These Virginians are out of control.
Yo, we like to fight.
West Virginia.
We like to fight, baby.
They went out and got 10 other states, got the nation's capital, and then when they got the Department of Justice to challenge the NCAA transfer rules. So that's coming to court in 2025, House versus NCAA, because they called it, quote, an illegal restraint on college athletes to enact NIL and pursue education. Because if I don't like it at this school, I should be able to leave without being punished. Just like the dude that failed physics and decided to leave to go to a not as prestigious school.
I'm gonna go get a liberal arts degree now. Like I don't want to be a physicist anymore. I'm just gonna get this liberal arts degree. I'm gonna go to some Fisk University somewhere in Ohio or something like that.
Yeah, but
you should be allowed to do that. I think, like I said, it's just a matter of
kids are adults if you're still going to treat them like kids.
You're losing your leverage. So you could do like Jay Wright did out of Villanova, who said, "Listen, this is not the world I want to live in." Maybe that was part of Nick Saban's decision.
I think that was part of why Roy Williams stepped down.
I mean, it happens if you want success and you need these relationships to work. It might not always be smooth, but don't just cop out because you get mad at the players because they want to leave, but yet you got coaches retiring and quitting and resigning because they don't want to deal with the new rules that don't allow for them to just stockpile.
Look at Kalen. We talked about it. Look at Kalen DeBoer. Now, granted, half of Washington is gone now, but you literally just took a team to the national title game, and no quicker than you could wash your ass, you were down in Tuscaloosa, talking to Alabama.
Was I talking to you, or because he had a press conference scheduled to
and then he
debunk the rumors
about
him going to Alabama, canceled it, and that same day they announced that he was going to Alabama.
Yeah, and granted, I know that the coaches are professionals, not bound to the same agreements that students are, but that's where the unfairness comes in, because as a coach, he can do that. Some people will criticize him, but I think most people, just like I think I justified it and was like, yo, it was Alabama. Like Alabama calls, you listen. But at the same time, like if you're a dude that's at like, say, even a Power 5 school like TCU, and Ohio State calls you and says like, yo, we want you to play receiver for us or whatever. And you know that Ohio State has been putting receivers in the NFL since pimping.
I think
like,
the last
you gonna go there.
Last 6 or 7 rookie of the years, one, if not defense or offense, has been from Ohio State.
Yeah, so it's the same concept, right? Or like if you're a quarterback at like Toledo, you know what I mean? Even if you get a call from Iowa State, you know what I mean? Iowa State still plays in the Big 12. Oh, by the way, Brock Purdy went to Iowa State. Breece Hall went to Iowa State. So why would I not entertain it if I'm a student or if I'm one of these kids? So
I have a job. I get LinkedIn messages every day. If I like one and I like the salary, I'll reply.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on? What we talking about?
So message to America. Freedom is freedom, not just when you agree with it. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. These kids, look, we always talk about how P. Diddy took advantage of the locks. You know, they were like 17, 18-year-old dudes hanging out in the streets or whatever. They didn't read that fucking contract. They didn't know what was in that contract.
Nah,
and they signed
you the lawyers to help you that work for
Diddy's lawyers translated it. They didn't have no lawyers. You know what I mean? So that's the same thing that's happening with these kids. And everybody keeps talking about how NIL is going to ruin the sport. To be determined, because as we get to this 12-team playoff, I wouldn't mind to see a school like Missouri win the national title, or I wouldn't mind seeing, like you said, David versus Goliath. I wouldn't mind seeing Georgia playing against. I ain't gonna
Houston.
go. Yeah, I ain't gonna go crazy and say like Tulane or something, but I
Or
wouldn't
even
mind.
Tulane. Like, I mean, if that's the matchup we get, that's the matchup we get. I think the problem is people clamor and want to make it seem as if they're upset that certain aspects of certain sports are rigged. But then when you get a matchup that is unlikely, i.e., Milwaukee versus Phoenix in NBA Finals, no one wanted to watch because it wasn't the Knicks versus the
Yeah,
Lakers. It
right.
wasn't a traditional powerhouse. It wasn't Golden State and the Warriors or what
Like
Golden State
everybody talks
and
about.
Boston. Everyone
Everybody
wants
talks about.
diversity and they want like this new wave and this new look, and they don't want the same teams. But as soon as you get a situation where Georgia loses the SEC championship game, like, you mean to tell me that Texas is better than Georgia? I'm just like, no, like these are the parameters. Allow for the parameters to be your guidance. I think I think people are giving people are we are the your people are people's feelings are taken into consideration a little too much and loud, and then they allow the masses to have to follow that. Like, I don't care what your feelings are. I understand what they are. I hear you completely, but they lost at the wrong time of the year. They're out. It's that simple.
Well,
Now
that's
we're
like
gonna
what
press on.
everybody talks about. Look at what Georgia did to TCU. Do we want to see that again? No, but acknowledge the fact that TCU beat Michigan to get there. The same Michigan that we're clamoring about the Chargers hiring their coach, the same Michigan that won the national title this year. Blowouts happen. I've seen Super Bowls. My favorite quarterback, John Elway, lost the Super Bowl 55-10.
Yeah, he lost a lot of Super Bowls like that.
I wasn't talking about, oh man, I really wish Buffalo would have got in instead. You play the season out. Whatever teams earn their way into the playoff, and then you let the chips fall.
And
But see,
and that's it.
this is where the NCAA doesn't have any teeth, because the NCAA isn't in charge of. They don't commit over the college football playoff. Now they run March Madness, but if I'm the Big Ten, SEC, and I'm pulling up out of there, I could take March Madness with me. I can start my own tournament. There were some tournaments. There was some talk last year that Fox. Now I don't want this tournament to happen, first of all, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Fox was talking about, since they own the Big East, the Big 12, and the Big 10 right now, they were talking about having a tournament with 16 teams from those conferences that didn't make March Madness. So
What's the
if
point of
that's
that?
money, right? Like, somebody will watch it if
Follow the money.
somebody will watch it, but I'll watch it. I don't want it, but I'll watch it. I don't like to play in, but I'll watch it. But but the point being is that if you could set something like that up, you could pull your institutions out of the NCAA and you could run March Madness yourself. Now granted, that would chop a lot of schools away, because in football, we got 133, soon to be 135. But in basketball, last I checked, we were around 363. So there's a whole lot of chopping down that would have to happen, but I think it's plausible.
I just think the greed. I think ultimately is greed and control that's shining a bad light on it, because I don't think the simple thing was pay the players, and the answer was, how do we do that? How do we get the same stipends? And like, no one really dug into it. So they put out this NIL deal, because eventually, we talk about the guy destroying. The kicker, has a YouTube channel. He got kicked off of his team. I think he was at UCF, because he was monetizing his YouTube page. So he wasn't allowed to play college football. It's like, what does his YouTube page have to do with his college football? But they wanted this whole amateurism ideology to be, like the law of the land. And they realized that's not the case. It is unfair. And they were going to get sued. Northwestern was probably, I think, the first school. Like, they were building like that. And like, if you want a lawyer, you get them from Northwestern. Like, that's where you get your lawyer from. So they were putting it together. Some of their smart players, probably small offensive linemen. Those guys tend to be the smartest guys on the team. and they were going to fight, and I think they were going to win because these antitrust laws are very, very simple. It's basically like you can't treat people like workers and not pay them. That's simply what the antitrust laws are. It's like you have to pay people for the work that they're putting in. You can't just keep saying, "Oh, they're not workers," and give them this classification so you don't have to pay them. Because as they dig deep into it, everything is gonna sound like a duck. Is this person mandated to be here at this time? Are they mandated to do this? Is there parameters involved? Is there insurance involved? Like all these things say you work for them.
And I
So
think
you
that's
have
where
to
we're
pay
headed.
them like they work for them.
I think that's where we're headed. By 2030, I think we're going to have employees, or at least a plan in place to create employees. Yep, and that's all it is. That comment says it all right there, because that's all it is. These coaches, I like that one.
Yo, it was a great scene. Aubrey Plaza's character and Gina Gershon in this movie called Emily the Criminal, and she was doing an interview, and Gina Gershon was the employer, and Aubrey Plaza's character Emily was the employee. And she was like, we're going to start you off on an unpaid internship. She was like, excuse me? She was like, yeah, you're going to work your way up. So what would I be doing? She's like, well, you're going to be doing the same thing as, she like pointed to some other girl in the room. She was like, so I'm going to be doing the same thing as her. You're going to get paid, but I'm not going to get paid. She's like, well, this is how you pay your dues. She's like, you could just pay me and I'll do the job. But if you don't want to pay me, you're not going to hire me and not pay me to where I have to be here all day and not get paid.
Right.
Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, the fact that that's even a thing blows my mind. But it makes me want to, you got to earn your stripes. Like, no, I got to earn this check.
Right.
So cut me an internship rate. Like, okay, you get $20 an hour. Once you get hired on, to go up to 32. Bet. Yeah. I can take that. I'll work for this extra 12. But I'm not working 8, 10, 12 hours a day for you to write me a good letter and maybe hire me, maybe not. So
right.
That's all it is. It's like they went from a complete autonomy and complete control over the lives of these players to now these players have leverage, and some of them will drive you crazy with their leverage. Some of the parents will drive you crazy with the leverage. Some of the dads are going to live vicariously through their sons. Some of the moms are going to live vicariously through their daughters when you try to get them on the volleyball team. Some grandfather who's a booster for this school. You're going to have problems. That doesn't mean you get to just change all the rules because you don't want to deal with the problems and the headaches. You can get out of the way. It's coming. Right. It's going to happen. You just have to deal with it as an organization, as an institution. Figure out a way. How do we get the people who provide us money for all these stadium extensions and all this other stuff and everything that we get monetarily? How do we divide it up to where we get players that are here that are going to perform? So when we need that $20 million bowl game check in January, we get it because we put $800,000 into the bank account of this defensive tackle. We put $1.6 million in the bank account of this quarterback to get him from California to Tennessee. Whatever it is you have to do to secure the bag legally, do it. Don't complain about the legalities of it because you simply want control.
Right. So, but there are 3 things that are inevitable in life: change, Thanos, and sports reports as ordered. You know what I'm saying? So, Thursday, we'll be back. And you know what's happening then? Super Bowl picks. Who you got? Who's going to be the MVP? Who's going to be the X Factor? All that coming for you on Thursday. And, as they say, so the we bop will do. And guess what? We love you.
Like, share, subscribe. Thank everybody for viewing. I've seen that number go up.
And wherever you get your podcast,
share it on Facebook. Share it with your grandma.
Biggest movement since Dipset.
Let's get it. Once again, appreciate the people chiming in. Master Powell, Ramos. What will Ramos do? PRD. You know what I mean? Coon song, Wolfpack. They don't know nothing about that. I'm gonna wear my Wolfpack jersey next time.
Yes, sir. That's what we do.
That's what
We'll
we
be back
do.
on Thursday, y'all. Peace.
Peace.